Hello everyone, how are you? Today we starting the lecture number 20 ban, that is for risk involved in importing. Whenever we are doing the importing from any countries, there is a slightly difference between export and import. Whenever we are manufacturing any goods and services in India, then we are sending that particular goods and services to across the globe. That is called exporting. And in the same manner, whenever we are asking any things from the across the globe, that is called importing. That means in other words we can say whenever we are buying from the foreign country, that is called importing. Whenever we are selling certain goods and services to the foreign country, that is called exporting. So as we know, numerous number of the risk involved whenever we are doing certain importing. So what are the types of risk and what are the types of risk and what are the risks involved in importing? First is the political risk. As we know, different countries have a different political system in their economy. So whenever we are importing any goods and services, we have to be take care about those political risks. Action about the government authorities, war, revolution, terrorism, strike, managing the political risk, monitoring political development, ensuring against political risk. So whenever we are importing any goods and services from across the globe, we have to be concerned about the rules and regulations about the concerned countries. If there are certain factors we have to be concerned about the political risk. Those factors are political interventions, political intervention of respective country, and political instability. We have to be see whether how much intervention, how much political intervention in the respective countries. Suppose that whenever we are taking an example of the North Korea or China or the politics with China or Pakistan, so where the involvement of government is very much higher as actually we are expecting. So because as whenever we are talking about the political risk, the government might change any policies, might change any rules and regulations, might change any taxation system. So that is the thing we have to be make sure about what governments can take the steps, government can take the actions about the import and export of the businesses. So that is called political risk in actions of government authorities. War, we have a perfect example of Indo-Pakistan trade. After the Pulwama attack, what we have done, we have imposed the huge tariffs on the goods and services, and we have removed the quota that is called most favored nations quota to from the Pakistan. We were giving the most favored nation quota to the Pakistan since independence since 1947. But after the Pulwama attack in 2019, what we have done, we have removed the MFN quota. So that is the thing, due to certain border classes, due to certain geographical classes, then what can be happen? There can be chances of the war. So that might also impact on the import. So in a same manner, India and China, we have boycotted the Chinese product. So just because of importing the goods from the China, or that is the only reasons we have seen in the last 2 years, 3 years, most of the multinational corporations, they have shifted their plant from China to the India, because India is a very untapped market, and in India there is a huge demand of the every goods and services, whether it's a low quality product or high quality product. Richest number of the most of the richest living in India, and if we talk about the poor people, they are also most in the numbers. So that is the thing. War also plays a very vital role or plays a very crucial role. Revolutions, if suppose that some countries has taken certain revolutionary steps, that might also impact the what we call import. Terrorism, yes. After the terrorism attack, that was a terrorism attack. So terrorism also plays a very crucial role. Due to terrorism, we have to be suffer while importing any goods and services. Strikes by the labor unions, strike by some other parties, strike by the populations. So managing the political risk, what we have to do, monitoring the political development, what are the developments are happening, ensuring against the political risk. So that can be numerous number of the political risks are involved while importing any goods and services from across the globe. Foreign credit risk of the wire default or delay in payment. We cannot rely on the buyers, because what buyers can do, sometimes they're not making the payment on time. Otherwise, what they can do, they can reject the goods and services whenever they're receiving them at port or at airport or seaport. So it might have some certain risk from the buyer side also. Sometimes what buyer can do, they can make the payment in a later on stage, after 2 months, after 3 months, after 4 months. There, because whenever we are doing any international trade, there is a exchange of the there is exchange of the foreign currency. So it might happen. What the buyers can do, they might thinking about that once our local currency will be appreciated, then I'll be make the payment. So they are waiting for once the currency will be appreciated, then only they will make the payment. So it can be also possible. Managing the foreign credit risk, appropriate credit management, letter of credit and other conditions. Yeah, letter of credit. What is letter of credit? Letter of credit is a document which is issued by the importer banks. Whenever we are making any international transactions, so what the importers bank, that is called export import bank of the country, they issue the letter of credit on the behalf of the importer. If something will be happen, then they will be responsible for the same. In other condition, we can ask for the insurance also. Third is the foreign exchanges. Change in the currency's value that could reduce the future export receipt or increase the importer payment in foreign currency. I've been told you about in a second point, that is all about currency appreciation and currency depreciation. I'm explaining you with one example. Suppose that if we are taking example of India and US, $1 is equal to 50 rupees. That is called normal price. So after 2 months, $1 is equal to become the 60 rupees, or $1 is equal to 40 rupees. As per the Indian perspective, if it will become $1 is equal to 40 rupees, that means Indian currency got appreciated and dollar got depreciated. If $1 is equal to the 60 rupees, that means Indian currency got depreciated. There is a rule of currency appreciation and currency depreciation. Depreciation and devaluation both are the same thing. But what we do in a devaluation? When the government deliberately decrease the value of the respective currency, that is called devaluation. But devaluation, depreciation, both are the same thing. Clear? So suppose that we are asking about, we have imported the, suppose that one marker from the US. That marker cost is $10. In a normal condition, what we have to do, we have to be paid the 10 into 50, that is called 500 rupees. If suppose that we are waiting for another 2 months, 3 months, once currency got appreciated, then I will be making the payment. Suppose that Indian currency got appreciated, then it will become the $1 equal to 40 rupees. Now in this case, we have to be make the payment into of rupees only. 40 into 10, that is called 400 rupees. We have saved the 100 rupees. So that is the thing, is changing the currency value that could reduce the future exporter receipt or increase the importer payment in foreign currency. So managing the foreign exchange is shifting to the risk to the other parties or third parties. Transportation risk, loss or damages to the merchandise during the transit. Yes, it is also possible whenever we are exporting any goods by a ship. So because it takes very longer time. Suppose that we are exporting any goods and services from India to US. So it might take 30 days or 40 days or 60 days or sometimes 70 days also. So during the transit, it might damage the product, it might damage the container. So there is a transportation risk also. So this is all about the types of risk: political risk, foreign credit risk, foreign exchange risk, transportation risk. Risk is a fact of business life, more so of international business. Whenever we are thinking about the international business or whenever we are doing the international business, there are numerous number of the risk involved. So this risk is totally fact of the business life. Without the risk, business is not possible. Higher the risk, higher the profitability. That is the golden rule of the business. The management of international business is the management of risk. The management of international business, the better you will do the management of international business, the better you can prevent the risk. The management of international business is the management of risk. No manager can make a strategic business decision or enter into the important business transaction without a full evaluation of the risk involved. So no manager, if suppose that whenever we just want to be entered in a India foreign market, so without evaluation of the risk, we cannot even think about the entering in the international market. So no manager can make a strategic business decision, or not even the small decision they can make it out without evaluation of the risk involved. So we have to be think about we have to be evaluate the risk, what are the types of risks are involved whenever entering in respective country. Or as we know, in a different countries, they having the different types of risk are involved. The same thing, the same risk you are facing as Pakistan or Iran or Iraq. So it might happen if you're entering the China or Japan, so you have to face the different risks. In a different countries have the different risks, but we have to evaluate the each and every risk in a respective country. Many of the best business plans have been ruined by miscalculation or mistake or error in judgment that could have been avoided with the proper planning. So we have seen many of the best business plans have been ruined because of miscalculation or mistake on error in adjustment that could have been avoided with the proper planning. So we have been seen in the past, many of the best business plans have been ruined because we haven't done the proper planning. If suppose that we could have done the proper planning, so it might have executed that particular business plan, which might get certain success in the future. So that is the thing. Many of the best business plan have been ruined by miscalculation or a mistake or error in adjustment that could have been avoided with the proper planning. Risk in export-import business. If the risk cannot be reduced through advanced planning and careful execution, perhaps it can be shifted to some other parties to the transaction. So what can we do if suppose that if the risk cannot be reduced through advanced planning, if suppose that you are not able to do the advanced planning or your risk cannot be reduced, then what actually you can do? Perhaps it can be shifted to some other parties. Then we can involve some parties. Then it might shifted from original party to the third parties. So there is called shifting of risk from one party to the other party. If the risk cannot be shifted to another party to the transaction, it might shift it to the insurance company. Yes, if suppose that there is no chances of involvement of third party, then what we can do, we can involve the insurance party. We can secure our product and services while purchasing the insurance policy or while paying the certain premiums. So if the risk cannot be shifted to the another party to the transaction, it might be shifted to an insurance company. Many types of risk can be insured against, including the risk of damages to the goods at sea, the risk of losing an investment in developing country, and many others. So as we know, we can secure the numerous number of the risk through the insurance, including the risk of damages. Suppose that while transporting the goods from one country to the other countries, during the transit, you suppose the container got damages, a ship got damages, a product got damages at a sea. Then if suppose that you have insured your product and services, then we can reduce the risk of losing investment in developing country and many other. So that is called risk in export-import business. Again, I'm just telling you, if the risk cannot be reduced through the advanced planning and careful execution, perhaps it can be shifted to some other party to the transaction. We can involve third parties. If the risk cannot be shifted to the other parties, then what we can do, we can include the insurance company. And many types of risk can be insured against that, including the risk of damages to the goods at the sea, the risk of losing investment in a developing country, and many other. Foreign market entry strategy. Risk assessment. Foreign market entry strategy. When a firm is considering its entry or expansion in a foreign market, when a firm is considering its entry or expansion in a foreign market, it must consider all options and decide on a course of action commensurate with its objective capabilities and its willingness to assume the risk. Selling it to consumer in another country result in a less risk to the firm that licensing trademark, patent, and copyright there. Okay, so whenever we are thinking about what are the foreign market entry strategy, we have numerous number of the entry and how can be entered in a foreign market. That is called direct exporting, indirect exporting, FDI, merger, joint venture, acquisition, and FDI. So what are these concepts? Direct exporting means, suppose that whenever we are manufacturing in goods and services in India, directly we are sending the goods and services to the respective country, that is Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Dubai. That is called direct exporting. We directly manufacturing in one country, directly sending those goods to the respective country. That is called direct exporting. In terms of the indirect exporting, sometimes due to certain border classes or certain political risk, political involvement, certain some other factor, we cannot export the goods to the directly to the respective country. And what we can do, suppose that there is a classes between India and Pakistan, sometimes we cannot directly send to the goods to the India to Pakistan. Then what we can do, we are manufacturing in goods and services in India, then we can send to the India to Afghanistan to the by Pakistan. That means we can involve the third intermediaries countries, that is called India to Afghanistan. Via Afghanistan we can send to the goods to the Pakistan. That is called indirect exporting. So whenever we are involving any the third party or third countries as an intermediaries country, that is called indirect exporting. FDI is all about foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment. Whenever we are directly going into the international market and starting the plant production facilities in respective countries, that is called FDI. You have a capital, just because of to taking the competitive cost advantage, that is theory given by the David Ricardo. So what actually you can do, just because of taking the competitive cost advantage, you are targeting those respective country where the overall cost of production is minimum. Then you are going with your capital, you are starting your production plant there, that is called, or manufacturing plant there, that is called FDI, foreign direct investment. Merger, you are entering in the business and you are merging with the existing firm in a respective countries, that is called A plus B is equal to either A or B or C. Okay, you are merging the firm with the existing company. Joint venture is equal to, that is example of it used to be the Hero Honda, nowadays Maruti and Suzuki. You are through the joint venture we can reduce the risk, we can reduce the competition, we can acquire the more market, we can acquire the more customers. The joint venture is all about A plus B is equal to AB. So we have a numerous number of the examples across the globe when they are one domestic country has done joint venture with the foreign countries company, that is called joint venture. Acquisition, whenever you are forcefully acquiring, whenever you are forcefully purchasing any company, that is called acquisition. The foreign market entry strategy is all about when a firm is considering its entry or expansion in a foreign market, it must consider all options and decide on a course of action commensurate with its objective capabilities and its willingness to assume the risk. Selling to customer in another country result in a less risk. To the firm, then licensing. Yes, then licensing, trademark, patent, and copyright there. That is again. Apart from these 6 strategies, we have licensing and franchising. Franchising again one of the best model to enter in the international business. McDonald's, Domino's, we have Barista, we have CCD. So we have a numerous number of the companies they have started their business in the overseas countries while distributing certain franchising, and just like a Starbucks, just like a Subway. So we have a numerous number of the companies across the globe. They started their business as a franchising. Licensing, you can give the license to mostly in the software products or mostly in the technology companies. What they do whenever this is want to be entered in a foreign company, foreign nations, what they do, they issue the license. Managing distance and communication. The risk of doing business in a foreign country are different from those encountered at home. The risk of doing business in a foreign country are different from those encountered at home. A firm doing business in a foreign country would encounter greater distance, problems in communication, languages and culture barriers, different in ethicals, moral and religious codes, exposure to strange, foreign laws, government, regulation, different currencies. All these factors affect the risk of doing business abroad. So a firm doing business in foreign countries would encounter the greater distances, problem in the communication. There might have certain problem with the communication gap. It can increase the problem in communication gap. Languages and culture barrier. In every country, they are having the different cultures. They are having the different languages. Just like if we are taking the example of the Saudi Arabia, or taking examples of some certain developed countries or Western countries, they have a different culture. So that is the thing. We have to be analyze the languages barriers. What are the languages barriers they have? What are the cultural barriers they have? So we have to be analyze those barriers also. Accordingly, we have to be send our production services in the respective different ethicals, moral and religious codes, exposure to the strengths, foreign laws in a different countries have a different rules and regulations, different government system, different policies they have. So we have to be considered, we have to be regulate, and we have to be make sure whether our product will be able to sold in our respective countries or not. All these factors affect the risk of doing business abroad. Currency and exchange rate risk. Managing currency and exchange rate risk. Currency risk is a risk of firm is exposed to a result of buying, selling, or holding a foreign currency. Currency risk include exchange rate risk, that is called risk of currency appreciation and currency depreciation. Currency appreciation and currency depreciation. It might currency appreciated or currency depreciated in a certain period of time. So we have to be see currency control risk. First is exchange risk, rate risk. Exchange rate risk result from the fluctuations in the relative values of the foreign currencies against each other when they are bought and sold on international financial market. I've been told you that thing. Currency control risk. Some countries, particularly developing countries where access to ready foreign reserve is limited, put restrictions on currency transactions. In order to preserve the little foreign exchange that is available for international transactions such as importing merchandise, this country restrict the amount of foreign currency that will sell. They will sell the private companies. The limitation can cause problem for a US or any other country exporter waiting for payment from its foreign customer who cannot obtain the dollars needed to pay for the goods. So sometimes what they do due to the certain restrictions, why they are putting certain restrictions, because they have a shortage of currency. They are using those currencies whenever they are buying certain merchandise, whenever they are importing certain merchandise, that then they are using only those currencies. Okay. So in order to preserve the little foreign exchange that is available for international transactions such as importing the merchandise, these countries restrict the amount of foreign currency that they will sell the private companies. Okay. Contracts for the sale of the goods. Special transaction risk in a contract for the sale of goods. Special risks are inherent in the international transactions for the purchase and sale of the goods. These transactions present special risk to both the parties because the process of shipping goods and receiving payment between the distant countries is riskier than the within countries. Such risk are payment or credit risk, property or marine risk, delivery risk, or pilferage are their risk. So special transaction risk in a contract for sale of goods. Special risks are inherent in international transactions for the purchase and sale of goods. Whenever we are buying and selling any goods and services, that is totally inherent with the international transaction. That type of risk are inherent with the international transaction. These transactions present special risk to both the parties because the process of shipping goods and receiving payment between the distant countries is riskier than within a country. Yes, automatically, whenever we are doing any domestic businesses are selling the goods and services in the domestically, so there is risk is less as compared to the whenever we are selling the goods and services in the international market. So payment or credit risk, property or marine risk, delivery risk, payment. Sometimes what the buyer can do, they are not making the payment on time. Yeah, they what they do, they reject the goods and services whenever they are receiving the shipment. Yeah, they are betting for currency appreciation, then they will only make the payment. So it might have numerous number of the reasons. or it might have numerous number of the risk can be involved in the payment system. Of the property or marine risk, property can be damages, delivery risk, pilferage, or the theft risk. Yes, theft risk also one of the major risks. Then political risk. Many export-import businesses are potentially exposed to various types of political risk. War, revolution, or civil unrest can lead to the destruction or confiscation of cargo. Government may impose severe restrictions on export-import trade, such as limitations or control of export or import, restrictions of license, currency control, and so on. Even though such risks are less likely in the Western countries, but in the Asian countries, these type of risks are likely to be happen. They occur quite frequently in a certain developing nations. Such risk can be managed by taking the following. So we have numerous number of the risks are involved. So many exporters, importers, business are potentially exposed to various type of political war. I've been told you the example of India-Pakistan revolution. Civil unrest can lead to the destruction and confiscation of cargo. The government may impose severe restrictions on export and import trade. So they might change certain political policy. They might change certain rules and regulation. They can increase the tariff barrier and non-tariff barrier. They can make certain amendment in our foreign trade policy. So it can be numerous a number of the policy amendment can be done by the government. The government may impose severe restrictions on export-import trade, such as limitations or control of export or import, restrictions of license, currency control, and so on. Even though such risks are less likely in Western countries, they occur quite frequently in certain developing nations. Such risks can be managed by taking the following steps. Managing the political risk. Political risk is generally defined as the risk to the firm, business interest arising from political instability or political change in the country or which the firm is doing business. Suppose that there is a certain political instability is there. Government are changing in a very frequent manner. Suppose that one government have come in the power and they have made certain policies, but again the new government came into the power and they have amended those policies. So political instability plays a very vital role. So what we can do, there should not be political instabilities. Political risks include risks derived from potential adverse actions of government of the foreign countries, which one is doing business or whose laws and regulation one is subject to. It also includes laws and government policies instituted by the firm home countries, which adversely affect the firm that do business in a foreign country. Risk of foreign laws in court. Many acts that are perfectly legal in one country can be illegal in another country. Yes, sometimes it happens, not in sometimes, most of the time it happens. There are numerous number of things which is legal in India, but those things are illegal in some other country. So many acts that are perfectly legal in one country can be legal in another. Indeed, most rebels to a foreign country could conceivably break a host of law, not even be aware of it. The same is true for the law of contract, employment, competition, torts, and other business law. Yes, it is virtually impossible to catalog all of the differences between these laws from country to country. Then commercial risk. The risk arising from suitability of the product for the market or otherwise change in supply and demand conditions and change in the price. Commercial risk arises due to the change, lack of the knowledge of the international market, inability to adapt to the environment of foreign market, different kind of situation to be dealt with, greater transit time involved. So lack of knowledge, suppose that you don't have full knowledge or perfect knowledge about the international market, then you cannot enter in the international market. So whenever we are planning for entering the international market, we should have the full knowledge and perfect knowledge about the international market. Then only you'll be able to get certain success. Inability to adopt the environment. Sometimes what happens, you're not able to adopt those international business environment. Because whenever we are entering an international business, so numerous number of companies are running in the market. They have a different marketing strategy, they have different business strategy, they have different strategic choices. So what actually we have, being in a developing country or being in a least developed countries, then what happens? We are not able to adopt the international business environment. Then different kind of situations to be dealt with, get a transit time involved. Then cargo risk. Transit disasters are ever present hazards for those engaged in export-import business. Every shipment runs the risk of a long list of hazards such as storm, collision, theft, leakage, explosion, spoilage, etc. It is possible to transfer the financial losses resulting from pulse and in transit of professional risk bearers known as the underwriters. As most goods are transported by marine transport, every exporter should have an elementary knowledge of marine insurance to get the protection at the minimal cost. So most of the insurance, most of the companies, they know about, they have the knowledge about the marine insurance. So what they can do, they can insure the product at a very minimum cost, so they can cover the risk. Cargo loss or damages. A number of factors contribute to the loss or damage of cargo in transit. Some of the major preventable causes for cargo loss or damage: theft, yes. Appropriate parking, use of shrinking wrapping, strapping, and branding, specifically pattern sealing tapes, enables quick detection of the tampering. Use of coded marking. Containerized shipment should be sealed after loading. Theft account for 20% of the cargo losses. Yes, it happens in international business. Handling and storage, internal blocking, blasting to the distribute weight, causing or to absorb shocks and vibration, pelletizing the cargo, use of cautionary marking in the handling the instructions, not exceeding the weight volume capacity of package, poor handling and storage account for 40% of the cargo loss. So due to this, if suppose that you are not able to maintain your, if you're not able to, material handling is not appropriate, then it might lead to certain blockage or certain shocks. So whenever we are storing any goods and services, they should have certain sufficient storage also. Barter damages, waterproof wrapping and waterproof linings on the interior of outer packages, elevating cargo above any drainage area, drain holes for container to prevent the accumulation of water. Water damages account for 50% of the cargo losses. That is around 15%, that is 14%, 40%, that is for 20%. Types of losses. Actual total losses, goods are completely damaged or destroyed or to change in their nature as to unmarketable. Then is a constructive total losses. Actual loss is inevitable, such as frustration of the voyage for indefinite time. Damages cargo can only be saved as a considerable cost greater than its value. Sometimes it's happened. Then partial losses, general average loss. These are the goods sacrificed as a part of the general average act or cargo owner's contribution for the general average loss of the others. Second is the particular charges. These are the expenses incurred to prevent losses or damages to insured cargo from the risk that is insured against. Example, expenses for extra fodder for a cargo of horses while the ship is under repair of hurricane damages that were covered under the policy. Then particular average losses. This include partial losses that are not covered by a general average on particular charges. Thank you. Thank you so much.